I just got back from China and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to incorporate this. So I say that I'm right now in the spaghetti cooking mode, and my noodles are hot in the classroom right now. I'm throwing them against the wall and seeing what sticks. And thus far, I've found that there's one exercise I do in the very beginning of class, every term for all my classes, that was the epiphany for me. Anybody heard of the tapper versus the feeler exercise? It's out of this book called Made to Stick. What you do, I have, like, class this size, I'll have 10 students. I'll say, 5 of you stand up front, the other 5 go out in the hallway with me. Go in the hallway and I tell them, this is what I want you to do. I want you, when you go back in the room, you can't make any facial gestures, you can't tap your foot, you can't hum. I just want you to grab the hand of the other student, ask them their name, and start tapping happy birthday into their hand. And see which one of them can gather what you're tapping into their hand. And happy birthday is a universal song, we all catch it. Actually, Elizabeth Newton was the person that, she's a psychologist in 1990, that came up with this interesting exercise. And only 2.5% of the people feeling could catch happy birthday. And what it's called is the curse of knowledge. It's because once I know something, I'm hoping to translate it to you, but I'm not filling in all the gaps because there's a disconnect. And this is what happened to me in China, is I had taken Six Sigma. I'm actually green belt in Six Sigma. I'm actually certified in ISO. I understand Kano analysis. I understand the Ishikawa diagram. So I thought I was very dynamic. I understood China. But what happened when I got to China, this was happening to me. I was just listening to taps, and I didn't truly understand. When I got there, I was like, oh my gosh, I get it now. I'm hearing the culture, and they have a different way of doing business that I would never be able to understand. And I think the best way I can explain this, there's a lot of foreign language folks in there, out here. I've been told, because I don't know a foreign language, outside of business versus English, that's the only language I know, is if you're learning a foreign language, this is true, if I can think in the language, it's easier to immerse yourself, is that correct? I was translating what I learned in China into my filter of an American businessman's mind. And I wasn't allowing myself to think like somebody in China doing business. And what I found out, a couple of things, and this is what I've been experimenting with in my classrooms. But again, I'm very high tech, but I'm low tech right now because when I came back from China, that was July, and then my department chair came to me, no, my dean came to me and says, would you like to be department chair? That was nice. All of a sudden, a couple themes were new to the mix. EQ versus IQ. In China, I found that they understand EQ. In business, in the United States, I'm just speaking about business people, they don't understand EQ yet. They understand IQ, but they don't understand the 5 phases of EQ.
What's EQ?
EQ, emotional intelligence, by Dana Goldman. First, there's actually 5 pillars to EQ, and I talk about this in BA 205. Thank heavens for Usha, she does accounting classes. I always say I teach everything but accounting classes. I teach the classes like business communication. I say these are the classes, businesses with a hug, like human relations and human resources and
American business.
like marketing, that kind of fun stuff. Sorry, no, accounting's fun. Thank you for what you do. So I go in and talk to my students and I say the 5 pillars of EQ, one of which is self-awareness. That's the first one. And when I was in China, because we did a lot of commerce as well, we went out and purchased several things. We went and dined. saw other activities than just the lectures. And I found when I was actually watching them in action, they're very self-aware. They're in the moment. We have been conditioned not to be in the moment. We're thinking too far out. We're thinking about individualism. They embraced what I found is the broken window effect, is that we need to take care of the community for which we are part of. And we don't let the broken window take away the community for which we're in. The second phase was self-regulatory in EQ. And as they paused, I found they were processing why. Why am I thinking this way? Why am I wanting to act this way? How many of you pause, and then when you pause, you start asking yourself why you're doing this? And maybe you do because you're educators, but in the business world, I've worked in corporate, I've worked in franchise development, I've worked in small business development. Rarely do we pause. And if we do pause, we don't go, why am I thinking this way? The third is motivation in EQ. And we tend to believe in the United States, and being very general, is my boss just doesn't motivate me. Gosh, I need to have carrots around me. In China, I recognized they had self-motivation. They didn't have to. Now, sure, they want some carrots. Sure, they want a little bit of, kudos, but they don't need it as much as we do. The fourth phase of EQ is empathy. Do I need to say anything more about empathy in the United States in business? But empathy in China, they understood their coworker. They understood what was going on for the greater good of the business. If they have an idea, they go to their boss and say, Brian, correct?
Right.
Okay. They'll go to the boss and say, Brian, I work for you and I have a great idea. I would like you to take this idea and make our company better. Would that happen here? Brian, I've got a great idea. Who's above you so I can go talk to that person about this idea? And finally, in EQ, is social skills. And knowing what environment you're in and how to behave in those environments. And again, in China, extraordinary social skills. I was dining out one night because I wanted to get away from, we were in these dignitary lunches and dinners, and I didn't know for sure if we were getting the royal treatment or if we were, it was truly what was happening. So we decided to go out in the community and just go to a restaurant one night. And they didn't know who we were. It wasn't part of our delegation or what have you. And this young lady came to me at the table, and she put down my food in front of me, and she said, it would be my complete joy that you have a wonderful experience as you eat this meal. Anything else? And as I've, in the lab, the social, I'm a little arrogant at times, but I think that he needs to add one more of the 5 pillars to 6 is being humble. And they're so humble there. And they try, when she said that, she wasn't looking for a tip. She was wanting to connect with me. And when I had this conversation, I actually did a rough run-through, like I am doing with you. I don't have all my notes together. With my students, they were going, wow, what's wrong with us? I said, it's not what's wrong with us. You've just been conditioned this way, and we have to find a new way of thinking of doing business. Because folks, when we outsource, and sure, let me be honest with you, we outsourced in the beginning because it was cost savings. I'm not going to try to disillusion you that we're doing it for any other reasons. But there was a second pot of gold that came along with that we weren't anticipating. Because if we outsourced and there was a 50% defect rate and there was client satisfaction going completely down the tubes, we'd be pulling out of those countries. We outsourced first for the cost savings, but second we found extraordinary quality. exceptional service levels. And that's why we're studying. And that is what I'm trying to get the students to understand between EQ, and I'm sorry, I know I'm almost out of time, is strength-based training. Anybody hear of Marcus Buckingham in here? I would strongly encourage you to go out. He's on YouTube, motivational speaker in business. I know, motivational business, but he talks about strength-based training, and what we do in our country, we're deficit-based. When you get your evaluations, 80% is what you need to improve on. 20% is what we do well. He said, why don't we focus more on what we do well? And this is what was happening in China. And several studies have shown, if you focus on what you do well and do it better, it starts to take over the areas where you're not well. And this is a sad number. I have to put it on the board just so you can see it. Right now, 17% of our population play to their strengths every day in the United States. 17%. In China, the number's much higher. I don't know what the number is, but I could tell just being there that they're beating our 17%. So between strength-based training and EQ, many of my students are going, well, we didn't even connect with that. And some of my students are saying, you're just killing my paradigm. I came in here to figure out how to make money and be a capitalist, and now you're saying that we need to, do a group hug. And I said, I think you probably make more money outside of the fact that you might be sexual harassment issues. That's a whole class. But to be more working towards community. So that's what sorry that I didn't have PowerPoint right there.